The municipal courtroom hums with small complaints and thin patience until a clerk calls the next name. A routine ticket, the judge thinks. Another morning in a city that forgets the limit near schools. Next, Mrs. Grayson, 42, 25 over in a residential zone. She rises in a slate dress and clean lines, posture like a ruler edge. Composed, yes, but the set of her mouth carries a chill. Your Honor, I'm not paying this fine. Do you deny the violation? I deny a lie. The officer fabricated it. Breath gathers in the benches, throats cleared, soft rustle, curiosity turning its head. You're accusing the officer of dishonesty? The judge asks, voice even. Yes, and I will prove it. I have video. She places her phone on the stand with a practiced hand, the screen reflecting the seal behind the bench. A clip plays, a quiet street, curbside bins, a sedan gliding through, nothing reckless to the casual eye. Speed unreadable, but the scene feels mild, ordinary. Where did this come from? The judge asks. My home security camera. I drove past at that time. The timestamp matches. He leans forward. The clip is brief, framed too wide. The plate is a smear of alloy and glare. He sees what she wants him to see and what she doesn't realize he also sees. Mrs. Grayson, interesting. But this does not establish that the car is yours. Her pupils harden. That is false. He decided to punish me because I didn't smile. The bench is still. Even the air seems to hold. We'll verify. The judge says measured. Evidence carries weight. So does accusation. She doesn't soften. If anything, something coiled inside her pulls tighter. Less defense than offense, a stance built for winning arguments at work and over dinner tables. The room reads it. Strangers glance at each other with the quick arithmetic of public judgment. The judge studies her a beat longer. A traffic case should be a short hallway with one door at the end. This feels like a corridor with many doors, some locked, one of them loud. He notes the way her fingers never tremble, the way she centers herself before each sentence, the way certainty can become its own mask. We'll proceed, he says at last. If there's more, we'll hear it. She nods as if granting him permission. That, too, is a tell. What began as a number on a radar has shifted into something heavier, a test of credibility, of pride, of how far a person will carry a story once it's been lifted above their head. And somewhere off to the side, not yet called, a young witness fidgets with the strap of a backpack, already knowing that truth sounds different when spoken out loud. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Tell me about yourself, Mrs. Grayson. The judge's tone is patient, deliberate. He's done this thousands of times. But she answers as though her resume could shield her. I work in insurance. Risk evaluation. 2 divorces. 1 daughter, 16. I've never broken the law. I won't let someone paint me as careless or deceitful. Her voice has a precision that feels rehearsed, as if she's practiced these lines before a mirror. But under the polish, a faint vibration of exhaustion trembles. Too many nights spent rehearsing grievances no one believed. What happened that morning? I was driving my daughter to school. We were late. I slowed when I saw him. He waved me over anyway. He started talking to me like I was a child. Patronizing, smug. Did he raise his voice? No. But his tone, condescending. You know the tone men use when they've already decided who you are. The words hang in the air, brittle but sharp. Somewhere behind her, a chair creaks. Someone whispers, then stops. Are you saying he targeted you because you're a woman? I'm saying he enjoyed the authority. He wanted a reaction, and he got one. She looks around as if the whole courtroom should nod in agreement. Nobody does. The judge writes something, then looks up. You mentioned you have a witness. My daughter. She was in the car. She'll confirm everything. The bailiff opens the door, and a girl steps forward. Pale, anxious, holding a water bottle like a shield. The courtroom feels suddenly larger around her. Miss Grayson, the judge says gently. Tell us what you remember. She wasn't driving fast. The girl answers, barely above a whisper. We were late, but not that late. Her eyes flick to her mother, who gives a small, approving nod, barely visible, but seen. Do you recall the officer's manner? He was calm. Just asked for license and registration. The judge's pen pauses. So he didn't raise his voice? No. She swallows. Mom was upset. She thought it wasn't fair. Do you think the officer was lying? A beat. The girl glances again at her mother, searching for permission. I don't think so. But maybe he made a mistake? A ripple moves through the room, a whisper disguised as breath. Mrs. Grayson straightens, her expression freezing into something unreadable. She was nervous, she says quickly. She doesn't remember clearly. The judge studies the woman, then the daughter. The faint tremor in the girl's hands doesn't escape him. Neither does the way the mother's jaw tightens each time the truth edges too close. He asks softly, "Miss Grayson, are you certain about what you saw?" The girl hesitates. "I think so, yes." The courtroom is quiet enough to hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. Mrs. Grayson's breath catches. "Thank you," the judge says. "You may sit." The girl steps back toward the benches, avoiding her mother's gaze. Mrs. Grayson's confidence falters for the first time. She's young, she insists. She doesn't understand radar readings or perception. She just wants this to end. The judge folds his hands. "We all do, but we're not there yet." She exhales through her nose, sharp and quick, as if trying to keep her control from leaking. Her eyes glint, not fear exactly, but disbelief that anyone could doubt her word. For a moment, she says nothing. Then, quietly, "You don't know what it's like to be accused when you've done nothing wrong." The judge doesn't answer right away. "You might be surprised how many innocent people I've met in this room," he says, "and how many convinced themselves they were." She looks at him, startled, not by the words, but by the gentleness with which he says them. The silence that follows is thick, uneven. Behind her, her daughter stares down at her hands, wishing for a door that doesn't exist. In the back row, the officer shifts his weight, as if bracing for the next blow. And in that stillness, something imperceptible changes. What began as defense now sounds like a performance unraveling, truth and pride colliding in a space too small to hold both. The judge senses it too. He closes his notebook, voice calm but heavy. "We'll hear from the officer next." Mrs. Grayson doesn't move. Her chin lifts again, almost defiantly. For her, this isn't about the ticket anymore. It's about dignity and the fear of losing the story she's built to protect it. The bailiff calls the officer's name. A young man in uniform steps forward, Officer Rains. His posture is disciplined, but there's tension in the way he clasps his hands. He's not defensive, not hostile, just weary. "Officer Rains," Judge Caprio begins. "Describe what occurred on the morning in question." "I was stationed on Elm Street, near the elementary school," the officer says evenly. "It was 7:42 a.m. Traffic was light. I clocked a silver sedan traveling at 52 in a 25 zone. I verified the reading twice. Then I signaled the driver to pull over." "Did the driver comply?" "Yes, immediately. She stopped safely, but appeared agitated before I even reached the window." "What did she say?" He exhales slowly. "She told me I was wasting her time, that she knew people at City Hall, and that I should pick my battles." I explained the violation, kept my tone calm. She began filming me, saying I just wanted to feel powerful. Across the room, Mrs. Grayson's expression tightens, but she doesn't interrupt. "You're certain the radar was accurate?" the judge asks. "Yes, Your Honor. The device was recalibrated the previous day. I have the maintenance record." He produces a printed sheet, hands it to the clerk. The courtroom is silent except for the soft shuffle of papers. "Was there any video from your body camera?" "Yes, sir. I activated it at the stop." "Play it," the judge instructs. The monitor flickers on. The footage begins with the faint sound of birds and the steady beep of a radar gun. Then, Rains's calm voice. "Good morning, ma'am. License and registration, please." Mrs. Grayson's voice cuts through, sharp, rising. "You think I was speeding? Do you even know who you're talking to?" The officer doesn't respond. He waits. She continues, louder. "You people just love pulling over women, don't you? Makes you feel like somebody." He remains composed. "Ma'am, I'm only doing my job. Your job is to harass drivers? Go find real criminals." The footage freezes on her face, anger caught mid-motion, eyes blazing. Gasps ripple across the benches. Someone coughs into their sleeve. Judge Caprio leans back slightly, his expression unreadable. "Officer, thank you. That will do." The screen fades to black. Mrs. Grayson's breathing is uneven now. Her daughter stares down at her knees, jaw trembling. The judge's voice is gentle, but his words cut deep. "Mrs. Grayson, you accused this officer of lying. From what I see, he remained composed. Is that accurate? She opens her mouth, closes it again. The pause stretches. I was angry, she finally admits. But he was wrong about the speed. I know my car. It couldn't have been 52. Perhaps, Caprio says quietly. This isn't only about the speed. Her eyes flash. You think this is about my temper? I think it's about how you felt, cornered, maybe humiliated. Those moments can twist our memory. The words linger, not as accusation, but as mirror. She looks at him as if the bench itself has turned against her. You don't understand, she says, her voice cracking. Men like him. I understand. The judge interrupts softly. I've spent 40 years listening to people explain why they lost their patience. It's the easiest truth to tell and the hardest to accept. She looks down. Her hands, once steady, now fidget against the wooden rail. Her daughter glances at her, searching for the woman who seemed unshakable that morning in the car. But now that armor has dents. The judge nods toward the officer. You may step back, Officer Rains. He bows his head slightly and returns to his seat, relief flickering across his face like a shadow finally released. For a long time, no one speaks. Mrs. Grayson stares at the blank monitor as if trying to will the image away. Then, quietly, she says, everyone sees what they want to see. Sometimes, Caprio replies, the camera sees what we tried to forget. Her shoulders stiffen, a silent tremor running through her. What began as righteous fury now trembles into something smaller, lonelier, an ache she cannot quite name. The judge closes the folder before him. We'll recess for 10 minutes, he says. As people rise, murmuring, Mrs. Grayson remains seated. Her daughter stands beside her, hesitant, then whispers, Mom, maybe it's okay to just let it go. But the woman doesn't answer. She's watching the empty stand where the officer stood, as if the truth has taken his shape and refused to leave. The courtroom sits in silence after the video ends. No coughs, no whispers, only the faint hum of the ceiling fan. Judge Caprio lets the moment stretch, giving everyone time to breathe in the weight of what they've just seen. He turns his gaze toward the girl. Miss Grayson, he says quietly, you told us your mother wasn't driving fast. Think carefully now. Are you ready to confirm that under oath? Her hands twist in her lap, fingers whitening around each other. She opens her mouth, then shuts it again. The room feels too large for her small voice. I don't know, she finally whispers. I didn't look at the speedometer. Mom was just upset. A low murmur ripples through the benches, then fades. The mother's head snaps toward her daughter, disbelief flashing first, then hurt. You were supposed to back me up, she hisses under her breath, eyes burning. You promised. The girl flinches. Enough, the judge says, his voice calm but carrying the authority of decades. Mrs. Grayson, that's quite enough. She straightens in her chair, eyes wide. The reprimand lands heavier than a shout. Caprio folds his hands on the bench, his tone low and steady. You just placed your child in a position no parent should, asking her to lie to protect your pride. This is not a case about speed anymore. It's a case about honesty. Her lips part in protest, but he raises a hand before she can speak. You wanted to expose a falsehood, he continues. But now it seems the only deceit came from desperation, your own. Color drains from her face. Around the room, people sit still, unsure whether to pity or judge her. The judge doesn't gloat. His eyes hold a quiet sadness, the kind that comes from seeing too many people lose themselves in the need to be right. He glances at the daughter, whose shoulders tremble under the weight of an adult's truth. You did the right thing, young lady, he says gently. Telling the truth is never easy when love is involved. Mrs. Grayson's jaw tightens. She wants to defend herself, but the words don't come. Her throat is dry. Her certainty has vanished, leaving behind something she hasn't felt in years, shame, unadorned and real. The judge's voice softens, almost like a father's. You accused an officer of dishonesty, yet he remained calm, even under your anger. Perhaps he did his job better that morning than you did yours, as a mother. The words cut through the air with surgical precision. No cruelty, just truth. A few in the audience exchange small, solemn nods. Others avert their eyes. Mrs. Grayson exhales shakily. Her hands tremble as she presses them against the table. She looks at her daughter, searching for forgiveness that hasn't yet formed. I didn't mean to, she says faintly. I just wanted to be believed. The judge finishes for her. We all do. But belief isn't something we can demand. It's something we earn. She bows her head. For the first time, her silence doesn't feel like defiance. It feels like surrender. The judge leans back slightly, giving her a moment to gather herself. No one moves. And then, softly, he says, the truth doesn't humiliate us, Mrs. Grayson. Our fear of it does. She closes her eyes. Her daughter reaches out, hesitant at first, then firmly, and places a hand over her mother's. For a long breath, the courtroom feels less like a place of judgment and more like a place of reckoning. The judge taps his pen once against the bench. We'll proceed, he says. But everyone in the room knows something irreversible has already happened. The turning point has come, and there's no going back. Judge Caprio lets the quiet linger before calling the officer back to the stand. Officer Rains, please step forward. He rises, straightens his belt, and approaches, calm, unhurried. The tension that filled the room a moment ago softens slightly at his composure. Officer, the judge says, I see you're relatively new to the force. This wasn't an easy encounter. Rains nods. No, Your Honor. It wasn't. She was angry, yelling, upset, but I could tell it wasn't really about me. The judge tilts his head. What makes you think that? Rains hesitates, then speaks with quiet certainty. When people shout at a uniform, they're not always seeing the person wearing it. Sometimes they're shouting at something else, something that's been building inside for a long time. I've seen it before. The courtroom stills again, but this time it's a different kind of silence, respectful, contemplative. Caprio nods slowly. Those are wise words, officer. You've said more in a few sentences than many manage in a whole career. Rains's expression stays neutral, almost humble. I just try to remember that anger isn't always about the moment it happens. My job is to stay calm until the storm passes. The judge looks back to Mrs. Grayson. Do you hear him, ma'am? That's the voice of the man you accused of lying, speaking without resentment, without pride, only with understanding. Her eyes glisten. She swallows, voice small but steady. I didn't mean to humiliate him. I just felt cornered, like I was being made small again. I couldn't let myself look weak, especially not in front of my daughter. Caprio leans forward, his tone measured. You didn't look weak, Mrs. Grayson. You looked dishonest. And that's what children remember most clearly. The words strike like an echo through her chest. She bites her lip, blinking hard. I understand. Understanding is not the same as changing, Caprio replies. But it's the first step toward it. Rains shifts slightly, uncomfortable with the attention. Your Honor, he says, if I may, she wasn't the worst I've seen. She was scared. People get defensive when they think no one's listening. I get that. Mrs. Grayson turns toward him, startled. It's the first time he's spoken directly to her since the stop. His voice holds no trace of bitterness, only quiet empathy. I wasn't trying to be cruel, she whispers. I just wanted to be heard. He nods. You were. Just not the way you hoped. Something in her breaks then, not loudly, not visibly, but inwardly, like glass cracking beneath weight. Her shoulders fall, and her next breath trembles. Caprio's tone softens once more. There's dignity in admitting when we've crossed a line. The hardest truth is often the one that saves us. Mrs. Grayson nods faintly, her voice barely audible. I'll remember that. The judge glances between them. The officer standing steady, the woman sitting small but human again, and the girl watching from the bench, eyes wide with something like relief. He closes the folder in front of him. This court isn't just a place for punishment, he says quietly. It's a place for people to meet themselves. The gavel rests idle in his hand. He doesn't strike it yet. He doesn't need to. Everyone in the room already knows a verdict far greater than guilt or innocence has just been reached. Mrs. Grayson wipes her eyes. For the first time, her expression isn't one of defiance, but of peace, fragile and new. The following morning, the courtroom fills again, quieter now, as though the air itself remembers what happened yesterday. Mrs. Grayson sits beside her daughter, hands folded, eyes lowered. The defiance is gone. In its place, a fragile calm. Judge Caprio enters, robe flowing like the slow weight of reason. He takes his seat and begins without ceremony. Mrs. Grayson, he says, this court finds you guilty of speeding 25 miles over the limit. The fine is $200. She nods, almost relieved to hear the sentence spoken aloud. But before she can reach for her purse, the judge continues. However, he says, voice deepening, the money won't be paid here. You will send that sum to the Children of Fallen Officers Fund. Do so in your own name. Her head lifts. In my name? Yes, Caprio replies. Because when we find the courage to admit we were wrong, it isn't weakness, it's strength. The words land softly but sink deep. For a moment, she doesn't trust herself to speak. Then, with a faint tremor in her voice, she says, I'll do it. The judge inclines his head. Good. He hesitates, studying her face. Mrs. Grayson, I don't doubt your anger came from somewhere real. Maybe life has handed you too many moments when no one listened. But truth doesn't always arrive dressed as victory. Sometimes it looks like loss, and yet that's what makes us better. Her throat tightens. She rises slowly. Thank you, Your Honor, she says, and then turns to the officer. And, I'm sorry. Rain stands, surprised but composed. Nothing to forgive, ma'am. The exchange lasts only a few seconds, yet something in the room shifts. A collective exhale, a quiet acknowledgement that dignity can grow from humility. As they prepare to leave, the daughter steps closer, slipping her arm around her mother's waist. Mom, she whispers, you looked stronger when you told the truth. Mrs. Grayson presses her lips together, fighting the sting in her eyes. Maybe, she murmurs. Maybe that's the only kind of strength that lasts. Judge Caprio watches them go, the faintest smile touching his face. He turns to the gallery and speaks, not as a judge, but as a man who's seen too much pride waste too many hearts. This courtroom, he says quietly, was never built to punish. It was built to remind us who we are. The gavel falls once, lightly, almost mercifully, and for the first time since it began, the case truly ends.